let's get into Power of the Rings Season 2, Episode 5. So the first thing that I want to talk about is this further questioning. We see it in Elrond first, and now we're seeing it in Durin the Younger, where they're questioning anybody that gets these rings. So it's not just about the one ring that's supposed to be like evil incarnate, the worst thing ever, but we're now talking about all of the rings, it seems like to me. Something I think is interesting too is the younger woman elf that's like part of the ones that are the team with the crafter elf, Celebrimbor, I believe. She seems to have a role to play in it, but I don't see that far down what it is, besides like she's someone that we can see Sauron's manipulation on. We can see that path that she's going down with him, and he's beginning to see how much easier and easier it is to see what she wants in a way to manipulate her. Especially because he compliments her and he says that her beauty is like Galadriel's beauty. So he's definitely flirting with her, definitely telling her what she wants to hear. She wants to hear that she wants her beauty complimented. She wants her skill complimented. She wants someone to notice her, which she probably doesn't get very often with Celebrimbor. So I think Sauron is really, or Anatar, is really focusing in on that point with her. So after this scene, we're switching back to Numenor. And this part I find really, really sad. I think it's like maybe a priest or someone who works in that particular shrine. And the guy just shatters it, just breaks it right in front of him. And I don't know. I just kept writing down, that is so unnecessarily mean. It's so cruel. Kind of reminds me of a real world thing going on where we have a lot of ancient antiquities being destroyed in the Middle East, and I'm sure different parts of the world too. But these are important things that tell a history, that have a religious connotation to them. And for them to just be destroyed, I think is really sad. So in this moment, it reminded me of that. But I don't want to get too serious with this because we're just talking about the show and recapping the show. And then also we have the fight that breaks out between the son of the king and the other guy, the curly hair guy. Don't remember his name. But we have a fight break out between them. And curly haired guy is definitely more battle worn, definitely can protect himself better. But at Elendil's request, he stops engaging, basically won that fight, but saved the guy's life. And the moment he turns around, that guy stabs him in the back. And the thing about this is so shocking to see it in this like Lord of the Rings Tolkien world. Like I think we're used to this in Game of Thrones or other fantasy shows, but not this one. And so it was really shocking. The thing that stood out to me the most though is the guard standing behind Elendil. Like his jaw dropped, like you could see the shock on his face. Like this is not how things are done. When I saw the look on the guard's face, I was like, yeah, I'm shocked too. Also not shocked that character did it, because he does seem kind of like a weasel, kind of a spoiled brat, that he would take any shortcuts he has, which then he double downs on and blames it on Elendil, saying that he did this crime. So, he's just not a good guy. And I really want to see in this series that we are advancing the people that are moral and hold their oaths and do the right thing, and that we're not keeping characters going who don't do that. I mean, I think we're going to see our Farzan for a while, and we're going to see him progressively be worse and worse. But I think for the son of the king, it's just kind of like too much, too right away. Like, we don't need someone like Elendil or another character to die that is good for this world. So I guess we'll see as the show goes on. Something else I want to say too is, like, I've read the first book, The Fellowship of the Ring, a little bit of the second one. Haven't read any of the extra books, but just my movie knowledge from Lord of the Rings and different YouTubers I follow, explaining more of the history in the books, the more this show confuses me. It's kind of hard to keep both of them straight, so I'm just trying to stay within the show. Just letting you know, if I seem like kind of confused, that's why, because it's like I have this other world going on in my head that I know of, and then I have this one, and they're making so many changes in the show that it just kind of makes me confused sometimes of like what the direction is of the show, like where we're going to get to at the end of this. So just want to put that in there as well. So after this, we see that Anatar, Sauron, we're seeing more and more of how he can spin the truth, of how he can say completely truthful things about himself and project them onto other people. We're seeing how easy it is for him to manipulate people, for all the promises and things that they're going to have, he gives them a little bit of it, just enough for it to be like people to trust him, just enough to feel like this is a good thing before you're like entrapped in his game, his plan, his manipulation. Like you don't realize it till a long while into his manipulation on you, that you don't have anywhere else to go. Like, he's slowly becoming more impatient, slowly becoming more emotional, Sauron is. So the manipulation is becoming more obvious to us as an audience. I don't think to the crafter elf yet. So in this episode, I really want to highlight King Durin. Oh, Peter Mullen. So I really, really like Peter Mullen as King Durin. I think he's doing a fabulous job. I know he's probably been in a lot of other stuff, but the thing that comes to my mind most recently is Westworld. And so I think it's very interesting seeing him as King Durin, because I feel like he seemed to really care about his people. He seemed to want the best for them, and was struggling when the different, like the windows for the entry, what were they called? Like sunlight holes or whatever in the cave. Like when those started collapsing in, he really started to panic about, one, how are we going to eat, because that we need that light to grow those crops. But he knew it was so important that it was weighing really heavy on him. But to see this kind of transition a little bit as soon as this ring gets introduced into his life, it's like we hear Durin the Younger talk about the greed amplify, not knowing his father as much. Like he's starting to do weird things that aren't to his character and starting to get worried about him. All right, and then we have this scene with Disa and Durin the Younger, where not only is Durin the Younger seeing the problems that this personality changes in his father, she's seeing them as well. And she's seeing that not only could this affect the king, but this could affect all the successors of the king. So she's making Durin the Younger promise to her that, he won't accept it, right? That whatever he does, he won't wear that ring. Now, I don't know where the show is going to go with this, but I feel like the look in the eyes of the character at that moment was like, he's going to promise this to her, but he just looked like he knows he won't be able to keep that promise. If or when he succeeds his father, he's going to take on everything from his father. But we'll see, because so far, this is so different from what I understand is in the books about the effect the rings had on the dwarves. It looks like all the rings in the series are going to have a greater effect on the character than in the book. So I'm curious to see where they're going with this. Because from what I understand, I think the rings help. I think the part that I go along with is, yes, maybe amplifying things that were already there, like the greed, like getting more and more treasures, because that was already something they were doing. But the thing that confuses me is the huge change in their personalities, where it doesn't seem like from the books and what I've heard on other channels, people talking who've read the books more in depth are saying that similar thing, that these rings really didn't change much and the dwarves never fell under like Sauron's control with those rings, whereas like men did, and anyone who had like the one ring, like they all fell under his control. So here's my personal note on this, is that I don't really get the rings being so evil from the very beginning, because I feel like part of Sauron's manipulation, part of what he does, is he gets you to buy in by giving you some of what you want. Enough to trust him, enough to buy in. Like you see good things happening right away, and you don't know anything bad's going to happen. It's kind of like the manipulation control he has over the crafter elf is what I see more of what the effect the rings would have. You're getting some of what you want. You're getting this hope of what you want, but the pure evilness, the darkness of it hasn't really set in yet. You don't know that's what's going on until you're really deep in. So it just confused me a little bit where they want it to be so evil so right away. I feel like it makes sense for it to be more gradual, but that's just my, I guess, question or critique or thing I would say on kind of the pace of how fast that is happening. Might make sense for it to go just like a little bit slower so that we're having this moment of buying into what it is. I think they did this best with the crafter elf, but then he didn't actually have a ring. He just had that proximity to Sauron that made him so vulnerable to falling under that. And I just feel like that's what those rings are. They're just that extension of him, that it would operate the same way. And then the scene I could kind of do without, which is just a short little thing, but it felt unnecessary to me, just as like this good cop, bad cop scene between Anatar and the Crafter Elf, where, Crafter Elf's coming really hard and heavy, and then Anatar comes in to kind of soothe it over and like be their friend. And it was like, these elves are already working day and night and already working really hard. They didn't really need this. Like, I don't feel like this is motivation. I feel like, if anything, it was causing more of a problem than them just working. Like, if they would have just addressed their concerns nicely, like, and not play this manipulation game on them. To me, I just thought this is, like, there's already so much going on. We didn't really need this. So the last point of episode 5, which I did put in the thumbnail of this video, about Galadriel really loves herself a toxic relationship. And the reason I think that, it's like, she gets attached to people, but as soon as they turn out to be like somewhat honorable, she's not interested anymore. I just felt like there was something between her and Elrond, and then it was like, oh, we're just friends. And then she was really in it with Sauron. No matter how much she debates it and says that he was a friend or she was trying to help him or whatever, I think it's clear in the show that she was falling for him. And then we have this episode at the end where she's getting captured by Adar's army, and she does this move where they're in this fight, and to kind of like this chokehold move, like that she's threatening him and all this stuff. But to me, it just came across so much more as a weird, like, rom-com teen drama toxic relationship setup. It was like, is she holding him in an aggressive way that they're fighting, or she have her arms wrapped around him and this is her next toxic relationship? Like, if she can't have Sauron, then she'll have Adar. Like, it was just so weird how it was set up. It didn't seem intense and like a fight scene to me at all. It just seemed really weird. This is definitely a huge departure from the books, a huge departure from the original Lord of the Rings movies. Like, sometimes when I watch Galadriel in this series, I'm like, how the heck do we get from where she is now to who she is in Lord of the Rings? And also who she was in The Hobbit, of like this badass elf that had all this power and could do all this stuff and protected her land and helped Frodo. Like, how do we get to where she is that, where she's like this not hyper selfish person out for like her own reputation or her own agenda, and she's chasing down all these like toxic people to have a relationship with? I just feel like, what are you doing? Is this her Avril Lavigne era, this era of like, she's got to get through all these toxic relationships before she actually gets in a healthy one? Why is it every male character she interacts with seems like it's the next relationship? And I don't think Sauron or Adar are like the good places that she should go with that. I don't know, guys, but why are they doing this to this character? I have no idea. She just must love a toxic man. Anyways, that's it for episode 5. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.